In the quiet residential neighborhood shrouded in morning mist, the maple tree in my garden casts shadows as it catches the gentle spring sunlight. This tree, which George and I planted 30 years ago when my husband was still young, has grown splendidly and watched over our family's history. I've been living alone in this house since I lost my husband 5 years ago. But I hardly have time to feel lonely, as my son Michael and his family never fail to visit every weekend. Grandma. An energetic voice echoes from the entrance. It's William, my grandson. He's a boy with surprisingly mature eyes for a 7-year-old and a pure, captivating smile. He always looks forward to visiting my house with genuine excitement. William, no running. Michael's voice follows. Despite his busy days as a middle manager at an IT company, he always makes time for family. His conscientiousness and devotion to family have remained unchanged since childhood, one of his best qualities. Mom, we're here again today. Next to arrive is Caroline, Michael's wife. Working at an advertising agency, she always appears with perfect makeup and stylish clothes. While her surface-level pleasantries are impeccable, I wonder if I'm the only one who feels a certain emotional distance that never quite bridges. Michael and Caroline met in college and married right after graduation. Back then, Caroline wasn't as ambitious as she is now. They seemed like the ideal young couple at first. However, as Caroline's work became more demanding, I noticed a gradual distance growing between them. Lately, she's been avoiding family time, citing important meetings and deadlines. As a pediatrician for many years, I've treated countless children. I believe I understand children's psychology well. I don't miss the occasional lonely expression behind William's innocent smile. Grandma, can I play in the garden today? William especially looks forward to playing in the garden. Under the maple tree, I share stories about our family's past memories with my grandson. Sometimes, I tell him heartwarming stories from my time as a doctor. William listens intently, his eyes sparkling with interest. Of course, dear. But first, let's have our tea time. Sunday afternoon tea time, it's our precious family tradition. Homemade scones and tea are laid out on the table. William happily puffs his cheeks as he reaches for his favorite chocolate cookies. Meanwhile, Caroline never lets go of her smartphone. I notice her expression subtly changing each time she checks her screen. Lately, I've heard the name David Thompson, an investment banker, mentioned several times. She says he's an important client of the advertising agency, but my intuition senses something else. David is known in the industry for his ambitious and ruthless personality. I recently learned he has a 7-year-old son with another woman. That child is the same age as William. I wonder if Michael has noticed the changes in his wife. Recently, I've been concerned about the dark circles under his eyes. He seems more pensive than usual. I worry he might be struggling with something, but my son has always tended to keep his problems to himself. Mom, I need to get going. Michael stands up as usual. Caroline says, I'll stay a bit longer, and brings up some work-related matter again. However, her eyes don't meet mine directly. As a former pediatrician and as a mother, I can't ignore the sense of unease floating within this family. Yet at the same time, I've tried to trust and accept my son's chosen partner. I believe that was my duty as a mother. Outside the window, the maple tree sways gently. The evening sun filtering through its leaves gradually changes color. Countless family memories sleep beneath this tree. However, I was beginning to sense that behind this peaceful daily life, something unknown was definitely progressing. That day, the cold rain had been falling since morning. When I woke to the sound of rain hitting the windows and stood in the kitchen to make my usual cup of tea, the phone rang. The clock showed 7:45 a.m. My hand trembled slightly as I picked up the receiver. It was the police. "Mrs. Baker, your son Michael Baker has been in an accident. Please come to Greenwich Hospital immediately." In that moment, my vision distorted. It was as if the world suddenly lost all its color. When the ambulance arrived, he was still conscious. The officer's voice grew distant. I grabbed my bag and headed straight for the entrance. The rain had grown stronger, but I didn't even have the presence of mind to open an umbrella. The drive to the hospital. Each time I stopped at a traffic light, I felt like my chest would collapse. As a pediatrician, I had seen many critical patients. That experience only made me imagine the worst possible scenarios. My heart leaped at every turn at an intersection, at every sound of a siren. "Please, Michael." I arrived at the hospital with a prayer in my heart. The familiar smell of disinfectant seemed unusually strong that day. While waiting for the elevator, my legs wouldn't stop shaking. "Mrs. Baker. This way, please." A young nurse at the nurse's station quietly guided me. Her expression seemed to already bear the worst outcome. "I'm very sorry. We did everything we could, but..." The doctor's words echoed in the white hallway. I leaned against the wall, nearly collapsing. As a doctor, I had delivered bad news to families many times. But I never imagined I would be on the receiving end. The details of the accident are still under investigation, but the road was wet from the rain. The doctor continued explaining, but his words didn't reach my ears. I just kept calling my son's name. I tried calling Caroline multiple times. But I couldn't get through. The voicemail played over and over. When I finally reached her, her words still ring in my ears. "I'm in an important meeting and can't leave right now. I'll definitely be there in an hour." I thought I detected a certain composure in her voice. I wanted to believe I was imagining it. She had just lost her husband, yet there was an unnatural calmness in her voice. A week passed, and the day of the funeral arrived. Mourners dressed in black quietly gathered at the church. As the scent of white lilies wafted through the air, I stood at the front, bowing to each person. Relatives from our hometown, Michael's colleagues, my former co-workers, deep sorrow was etched on each of their faces. Caroline was perfectly made up, dressed in a black Chanel suit. She was crying. But somehow it seemed theatrical. She even showed gestures of checking her smartphone occasionally. I tried to dismiss such thoughts. Perhaps grief was distorting my mind. In a corner of the venue, I noticed an unfamiliar man. It was David Thompson. Why was he here? Would a mere client appear at such a private occasion? William didn't seem to fully understand his father's death. Still, his usual brightness was subdued, and he watched the mourners with an adult-like expression. His small frame in the black suit was painfully touching. Suddenly, A small hand grasped mine. Warm. Alive. That sensation stirred my heart. Grandma. William whispered to me, his voice almost lost among the quiet murmur of the mourners. But his words pierced my heart sharply. Dad told me to dig under the maple tree in the garden. Those words made my body freeze. A chill ran down my spine. William, when did Dad tell you this? I asked with a trembling voice. William's innocent eyes looked straight at me. Those eyes were just like Michael's. The night before the accident. Dad came to my room and said, "Make sure to remember." At that moment, something froze inside me. Had my son sensed something coming? Or? As my thoughts began to reach that conclusion, I felt terror rising from deep within. After the funeral, as night fell, I couldn't sleep at all. Outside the window, the rain had started falling again, as if to remind me of that day. Listening to the rain, I imagined my son's final moments, my chest tightening repeatedly. The next morning, before dawn, I went out to the garden where the maple tree was wrapped in morning mist. The scene from 30 years ago when George and I planted this tree came back to me. My young husband's smile. Little Michael enjoying playing in the dirt. Those memories overlapped with the current reality, tearing at my heart. I picked up the shovel. The first dig took the most courage. The rain-soaked earth was heavy, making it difficult to dig. My gloved hands gradually transmitted the cold sensation of the soil. But William's words drove me forward. Make sure to remember. Why didn't Michael tell me directly? Why did he tell his 7-year-old son? Questions kept arising. He could have contacted me by phone. He could have sent an email. But he entrusted his final words to his pure-hearted child. After digging for about an hour, my arms were tired and sweat beaded on my forehead. Then, the shovel hit something. A dull sound. My heart raced. When I put my hand in the soil, I felt something cold. A waterproof case. My hands trembled as I pulled it out. I was certain that inside this case was something my son had risked his life to convey. But at the same time, I felt afraid of knowing the truth. Opening this lid might dramatically change our lives. The morning sun began filtering through the maple leaves, as if to illuminate the truth that was about to be revealed. The mud-covered waterproof case felt heavy in my hands. I lifted it with trembling hands. It was heavy. But this weight felt like more than just physical, it was the weight of the truth my son had risked his life to tell me. As I placed my hand on the lid, a moment of hesitation crossed my mind. Back in the living room, I placed the case on the table. The morning sun streaming through the window illuminated its black surface. Taking a deep breath, I slowly opened the lid. The first thing I saw was a white envelope. It bore my son's handwriting, "To Mom." Beneath it were multiple documents stacked together. And a silver USB drive. I took out the letter. The sound of breaking the seal echoed in the quiet room. To Mom. If anything happens to me, please open this case. You may be shocked to learn the truth, but William is my son. Even though we're not blood related, I've loved him for these 7 years. But I can't leave him with Caroline. Please look at the enclosed evidence to understand why. Michael. My hands shook so much I dropped the letter once. The words, "not blood-related," echoed in my mind. Opening the documents beneath, I found DNA test results. I was familiar with reading these types of test results. However, at this moment, no professional knowledge was necessary. The result was clear. William was not Michael's biological child. Next, I found a photograph. Caroline and David in an intimate pose. It was dated 7 years ago. Before William was born. Beneath it were more photos stacked together. Evidence showing their relationship had continued for over 7 years. The most shocking was the existence of one particular photo. David with another 7-year-old boy. The child's expression somewhat resembled William's. On the back was a date and the words, "with my son." A child the same age as William. The truth was gradually taking shape. With trembling hands, I inserted the USB drive into my computer. There I found evidence my son had meticulously gathered. Email exchanges. Phone records. Bank transaction histories. And the most terrifying discovery, messages suggesting Caroline and David's plan to murder disguised as an accident. Caroline's words, "I absolutely can't leave the meeting," came back with new meaning. Creating a perfect alibi. It had been part of the plan. Before calling the police, I reviewed all the evidence once more. The composure I had cultivated over years as a doctor came in handy at this moment. Don't let emotions take over, first organize the facts. While explaining the situation at the police station, my voice was surprisingly calm. The detectives examined the evidence with serious expressions. They particularly focused on the email exchanges from the morning of the accident. "Mrs. Baker, let us check the security camera footage near the accident site." I nodded at the detective's words. The monitor showed a rain-soaked mountain road. Michael's car enters the frame. And then, right after, a black SUV approaches rapidly, while another car closes in from behind. My son would have had no way to avoid it. The driver was undoubtedly David Thompson. We can confirm the car behind was Caroline Baker's. The detective's voice rang cold. Furthermore, the owner of a nearby coffee shop provided eyewitness testimony. They had seen a black SUV and a silver car waiting just before the accident. So it was a premeditated murder. The detective nodded gravely at my question. As the truth came to light, my emotions swayed complexly. Deep love for my son. Anxiety about William's future. And anger toward Caroline and David who had plotted this deliberate murder. However, what stayed with me most were the words from my son's letter. "William is my son." My son knew there were things more important than blood ties. I must absolutely protect that sentiment. As I left the police station, there was a faint light in the sky. As if the long dark night was finally breaking. A quiet but certain resolve was growing within me for the new battle ahead. A week after submitting the evidence to the police, the investigation progressed rapidly. The detectives analyzed the security camera footage in detail and conducted thorough interviews around the scene. Then, decisive evidence was found. "Mrs. Baker," the detective's voice was filled with certainty. "Arrest warrants have been issued." That evening, Caroline and David were arrested at their respective workplaces. The evening news showed Caroline being led away in handcuffs from the advertising agency office. Under her perfect makeup, her expression was cold as ice. "I did nothing wrong. I just wanted to be happy." Her words at the time of arrest still ring in my ears. 3 months after the incident, in a courtroom where autumn was beginning to make itself felt, all the truth was revealed. The prosecutor presented evidence one by one as the gallery watched with bated breath. The defendants Caroline and David Thompson murdered victim Michael Baker under a carefully crafted plan. The prosecutor's voice echoed through the silent courtroom. The screen displayed detailed diagrams of the accident scene. Friday, March 15, 2024, 7:30 a.m. A single-lane mountain road in the suburbs. The details of that day were meticulously explained. David's black SUV lay in wait along the victim's commute route. Simultaneously, Caroline pursued from behind in another vehicle. On the sparsely populated mountain road, they sandwiched him and forced him off the cliff. The security camera footage played. The misty mountain road. Michael's car entering the frame. Then the black SUV and silver car. My son had no chance to escape. Watching the footage, I felt my chest tighten imagining my son's terror in that moment. Furthermore, to make it appear as an accident, the defendants erased brake marks at the scene. Caroline deliberately delayed her arrival at the hospital citing an important meeting, among other perfect alibi preparations. Evidence was presented one after another. Caroline and David's email exchanges. Phone records. Bank transaction histories. And the beginning of their relationship was revealed. 7 years ago, Caroline met David during a major advertising agency project. Attracted to his position, wealth, and ambition, she quickly began an affair. At that time, I believed my son was living a happy married life. Behind that, betrayal had already begun. Michael wasn't enough for me. He lacked ambition. Caroline's testimony in court drew sighs from the gallery. Her voice showed not a hint of regret. The motive for the crime gradually became clear. Michael had begun to notice the truth. The DNA test results. Evidence of the affair. And the most shocking fact, William was actually David's child. Moreover, David had another child of the same age. The existence of my son could have damaged my reputation at the company. David's testimony. He feared his son's existence would threaten his position at the company. Combined with Caroline's desire to avoid dividing assets in a divorce, the two decided on murder. The prosecution also revealed why my son entrusted the truth to 7-year-old William. Michael's phone was constantly monitored by Caroline. Emails, calls, all records were under her surveillance. Direct contact with me would have been immediately noticed. The victim Michael Baker was under complete surveillance by his wife, the prosecutor's voice rang out. However, he believed she wouldn't be suspicious of conversations with an innocent child. Furthermore, Michael's diary was found during the investigation. It contained his deep love for his son and his final decision. William will surely remember my words. An innocent child's memory cannot be erased by adult schemes. And Mom will surely understand the truth. As a pediatrician, she knows better than anyone the weight of a child's words. I held back tears in court as I heard these words. Until the very end, my son had calmly assessed the situation and chosen the most reliable method. It wasn't that I wanted to hurt the child. I just wanted to switch to a new life. Caroline refused to acknowledge her guilt until the end. Wrapped in perfect makeup and black clothing, she sat with dignity. But her eyes were hollow. Her attitude didn't change even when confronted with the facts. David, on the other hand, changed his stance partway through. Probably on his lawyer's advice. Betraying Caroline, he admitted to all crimes. He must have thought it was the only way to reduce his sentence. However, the outcome didn't change. On the day of sentencing, the courtroom was filled with unprecedented tension. Defendant Caroline Baker, the judge's voice resonated heavily. For the crimes of first-degree murder and evidence tampering, you are sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Caroline's expression crumbled for the first time. Defendant David Thompson. For the crimes of first-degree murder, evidence tampering, and conspiracy, you are sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. A deep silence fell over the courtroom. A week after the verdict, a custody hearing was held. I presented my experience working as a doctor, stable living foundation, and most importantly, my deep bond with William. My son, knowing there was no blood relation, loved William for 7 years. I want to carry on that love. The court considered both parents' imprisonment for serious crimes, along with the substantial 7-year grandparent-grandchild relationship between William and me. Full custody was transferred to me. Mrs. Baker, we entrust your grandson's upbringing to you. I bowed deeply at the judge's words. I will surely make him happy. 1 month after that promise. In the autumn twilight. William and I sit together under the maple tree. The leaves are beginning to change color, glowing in the setting sun. Grandma, do you remember Dad? William's sudden question makes my chest tighten. Those eyes are just like Michael's. Even without blood ties, 7 years of love were definitely there. My son was right. An innocent child's memory had indeed carried the truth. Of course, dear. Your dad, you know, loved you more than anything. Whether you're related by blood or not doesn't matter for true parent and child. Yes. Dad always protected me. Tears glisten in William's eyes. I quietly embrace my grandson. His small body trembles slightly. Your dad's love is proof of true parenthood. And Grandma will always protect you too. The evening light gently wraps around the two of us. The maple leaves sway in the breeze. Under this tree, our family's memories will live on forever. The truth behind the incident has been revealed, and the perpetrators have been judged. But this isn't the end. It's the beginning of a new family story. An unknown future stretches before William and me. The truth and love that my son gave his life to protect. We will continue to live cherishing these always. Under the maple tree, the autumn wind blows quietly. Tomorrow will surely bring gentler sunshine than yesterday. Believing this, we take our new step forward.